A very good morning. Children, how are you doing? How are you keeping up, staying back at home? I'm sure I'm not going to tell you more about washing your hands. I'm sure everybody at home must be telling you to do that. But I would just like to add, are you eating proper food? I hope you're not having too much of junk food. At this time, we have to stay healthy. So it's very important that you have a strong immune system. Immunity is something that helps you fight against all these germs, these viruses, the bacteria. So what do? We improve our food in. We have lots of fruits like oranges, kiwi. You can have your lemon juice, but remember, none of them cold. You should make it fresh at home and have lots of salads and have lots of water. I repeat, have lots of water. Okay, now please try not to have chilled water, no ice creams right now. The season is changing and the coronavirus is everywhere. Okay, so just got to protect ourselves. Yes, now today's lesson is about measuring the time intervals. Please take out your textbook to pages 170 and 171. Have you written today's date? Today is 31st of March 2020. And write classwork. Yeah, look at the first question. Before we look at these different measurements of time. Now, when we start off with measuring time, you have one way. What is the time today? Or what is the time now? I say, suppose, okay, it's 10 past 20. Or I say 20 minutes past 10. So it is 10:20. Now today we are going to talk about other different the different other units that we have. What are they? The first one is second. You can see it on the screen, or minute. Next is hour. Then come down, it's day, year, decade. And the last two words I think are new to you. So to begin with, when I say the word second means, come on, come back in a second. How many times you've heard so many of us repeating this? I'll be back in a second, I'll be back in a moment. So second means it is kind of the shortest span of time. Then the next is minute. So minute is that we have, please give me 10 minutes to finish this work. Or so many times you've heard me telling you in the class, come on, I give you just 5 minutes, finish it. So, minute. It's also a unit of time. The next word is hour. Yes, hour is bigger. And as we are going through each word, they are increasing in time. They are all units of time, but they are getting bigger and bigger. So we say, come on. Now you will have a test for 2 hours, or it takes 1 hour for me to clean the house or to finish my work. The next is day. I'm sure all of you know this. Day is today, tomorrow, each day. Next is year. Okay, now this is year 2020. Last year was 2019. This word now, decade, probably you have not heard. What is a decade? Let's begin. 60 seconds make a minute. 60 minutes make an hour. There are 24 hours in a day, and there are 30 to 31 days in a month, except the month of February. There are 12 months in a year, or we can also say 365 days, or when February has 29 days, this number will become 366 days. Now, there are 10 years in a decade. So every 10 year, like how we keep counting by 10, so every 10 year forms a decade. So 2010 to 2019 was one decade. 2020 to 2029 would be the next decade. And how many decades are there in a century? There are 10 decades in a century. Century is 100. So why 100? Because 10 decades. One decade has how many years? So it has 10. So 10 multiplied by 10 is 100 years in a century. If you don't want to say 100 years, then you say there are 10 decades in a century. There are 10 centuries in a millennium. So one century has how many years? 100 years. So there are 10 centuries in a millennium. Okay, with this explanation now, let's start off. Page 170, question number 1. Now there are two examples written here. So the first is years. One example is already written, age of people. What could be the other example that you can write? You can write time spent at school. Yes, not in each class, at school. Now, minutes. Can you give me two examples? Maybe time to bake, or time to travel to school, or time to do your homework, or time to do your classwork. Any idea that you have, you can write. Hours. What will we write in hours? School day, or the time taken for a cinema, or what else? To finish your homework, or how many hours do you study? Okay. Now for months and seconds, I want you to finish it as your homework. Question number 2 is homework. Now look at the question. It says, what is your date of birth? Exactly how old are you in years? What is your partner's date of birth? Now your partner, if you would have been in school, I would have told you to talk about your friend who's sitting next to you. He or she would be your partner. But now since you're at home, this partner, please make it as your sister or brother, anyone. So you can fill in the details. Now question number 3 also is homework, because you have to again do it along with your partner. Okay, it's not very difficult. Now come to page 171. Which unit of time do you use to measure? The time to eat breakfast. How many of you take hours to eat breakfast? None of you, right? Hours is a long unit of time. So how do we measure? We measure in minutes. The time to run a marathon, at least 26 miles. How would you measure? You would measure it in hours. The time for a baby to grow up. Yes, baby to grow up. It doesn't happen in a second. It doesn't happen in a minute. It doesn't happen in an hour. It takes years. The time to write your first name. Now, I'm sure all of you can write your first name in a few seconds. Correct? The time for a football match. Football match takes place in minutes. The time to drive 500 kilometers. 500 kilometers would be from Muscat to Sur and back to Muscat. Yes. So what will we measure the time in? Shall we measure it in seconds or minutes or years or hours? We'll measure it in hours, right? And a school year. See, I'm not talking about the year. I'm talking about a school year. School year means the time you are in school probably for that year. You know, so grade 4, your school year. How will we measure it? In months. Clear? Now question number 2 is the hospital doctor's appointment list for a day. Now this is very simple, interesting. I mean, I found it very interesting that it's written Tuesday's appointments, and you see what are the names that are given? It's Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Pluto, Miss Neptune, Miss M Mercury, Miss U Uranus. Yeah, so that's a little funny, but come on, let's finish off this as your homework. Yes, stay happy, keep smiling, and until we meet for tomorrow's lesson. Yes, I want you to finish this work and please send it to me by tomorrow. Thank you.